Hi, and welcome to Unveiling the Truth.
Where we unveil the truth about the Catholic Church one fact at a time.
I'm Nefer.
And I'm Nellie, and today we're going to be unveiling the truth about chapel veils.
So without further ado, let's go unveil the truth. Okay, so before we dive any deeper into actually explaining the theology and stuff about veiling, we should talk about what veiling actually is. So traditionally, women would wear veils or mantillas to church, and it was just a sign of respect and reverence, especially when coming face to face with like the Blessed Sacrament. And over the years, recently, this practice has kind of died down. So we're just going to be talking about why the catechesis behind wearing veils and why we should traditionally wear veils. So, yeah.
So the three main reasons that we have for women wearing a veil and why they should still wear a veil today. The first one being the bride of Christ. We'll get more into that later. Reverence and modesty, and because God and the Bible told us to do so. And we have documents and articles backing us up and proving our point, and I thought that they put it so much better than I could do it. But basically, starting with the bride of Christ, we as women are so much more special than men in the eyes of the church. Like, everybody thinks that the Catholic Church oppresses women when it's actually exactly the opposite. See, God sees us women as the fruit bearers, like his holy mother, we bear life, and something that is so mysterious and beautiful has to be covered up from the eyes of unworthy people. That is one of the reasons we wear the veil. And as the bride of Christ, we wear head covered to say, I'm here with my groom, in the Holy Eucharist, and I will cover my head for him. And so that's one of the reasons. And like I said, we can also relate to Mary. She always has her head covered, and she was the first tabernacle. And it's also a sign that anything holy has to be covered. The same way that the tabernacle holding Jesus is covered with a veil is the same reason we veil ourselves, is because we're holy and pure in God's eyes, and we want to keep that image and let everybody know that we have that image. The second one being reverence and modesty. It goes back to being humble. So actually, in the Bible, it has some verses about the way we should dress and the attire we should have when we are worshiping God. And a good priest friend of mine, Father Nesto, sent this to me, and he actually had a really cool story that when he was younger, before Vatican II, the women would sit on the left and the men would sit on the right of the church, and the women always had their heads covered, and the women sat on the left as the same. You could relate it to marriage, as like you're separating the flock, and on marriage, the family of the bride sits on the left and the family of the groom sits to the right. So he was telling me that, and he sent me some really good Bible verses talking about how women should dress and men should dress when we're worshiping God or going to mass. And it says, so 1 Timothy 2:9-10 says, also I want the women to dress modestly with decency and propriety, referring to the veil and covering ourselves up. Adorning themselves, not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes, but with good deeds appropriate for women who profess to worship God. God requires that we dress modestly, and wearing our veils covered is also a sign of modesty, because we're covering ourselves up for unholy eyes, and we're covering and it's also putting ourselves on letting everybody know that we know that there is something sacred in the monstrance or in the tabernacle. The next verse is 1 Corinthians 16:29 and Psalms 29:2. And 96:9. It says, and the Catholic Catechism teaches that our gestures and our clothing ought to convey the respect, solemnity, and joy of this moment when Christ becomes our guest in the Holy Communion. And then, so that's awesome. It's the Bible, and there's also somewhere in the Bible where it says that men should uncover their heads and women should cover their heads.
Right.
Just because the women play so much different roles than men in the Catholic Church. Sorry?
And it's really fun. It's really funny that you talk about like reverence and modesty, especially like right now in this day and age.
Definitely.
Where you have women that are kind of be like, why do I have to dress modestly? Like, why can't men just respect me for even if I dress like whatever? It's like, okay, but just because like obviously men should not be disrespecting you. That's just for sure the way it is. But that doesn't give you the right to disrespect yourself. It's like we are temples of the Holy Spirit, and I think when you talked about how women are like the greatest creation, it actually goes back to Genesis, where woman was the pinnacle of creation. And notice that God didn't rest until after woman was created.
And also Adam wasn't happy until woman was created.
Exactly, yeah. And so that was sort of the fulfillment of that. And that's why I think there is a lot more of that modesty, that sort of plea made for women to be more modest. which is something that we've totally lost in our day and age. And I think that contributes a lot to why veiling has been lost over the years.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and that going back to us being the temple of the Holy Spirit, the same way that the tabernacle holds the Eucharist, and it has to be veiled because something holy is there. Well, God asks us to cover ourselves because we're the temple. When we receive Him, we're like totally His temple, and He's in us and everything like that, and that's why we cover ourselves up. It's like, God, I see you, I know you're holy, and I want to cover my head because you're not worthy to see me.
Yeah.
It also goes back to back then, the woman's hair was like her crowning beauty.
Right.
That's what made her beautiful. So we're also humbling ourselves. So it's a sign of humbleness too.
Yeah.
So in the Code of Canon, actually, the canon, it says, and the canon is like the doctrines of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I was like, we should explain what the canon is.
Yeah. So it says, it is desirable that, consistent with ancient discipline, women be separated from men in the church. Obviously, because we have different roles.
Right.
This being said, men in a church or outside a church, while they are assisting at sacred rites, shall be bareheaded unless approved mores of the people or peculiar circumstances of things determined otherwise. Women, however, shall have a covered head and be modestly dressed, especially when they approach the table of the Lord.
Yeah, so that's like a lot of it too. Veiling is like not just veiling at mass, but veiling when you're in adoration, veiling when you cross through a tabernacle, because it's just that respect that we're sort of giving God, you know.
Yeah, and it's so cool when you think about it that we just have such feminine grace to us, and we're like so beautiful in the eyes of God that God is like, you are like this treasure that has so many secrets, and I want you to be covered up for me, for the eyes of the Lord, and for everyone around. And that way you'll let everybody know how special, how beautiful, and how important you are, that you are covering yourselves up for God as His princess and as His bride.
Right.
Another good thing, I found this article that explained it really well. It was a Texas article about this, and she explained it very well. And she said that there's this one part of this article I'd like to go over. It says, veiling is connected to a Catholic understanding of femininity. Even on the most basic and atomic level, women are veiled. To explain, a woman's intimate organs are hidden inside of her as opposed to a man's. In many ways, it etches the structure of the masculine and the feminine. Women have a unique emphasis on the internal, being the heart of society. Men have a special correlation with the external, being the head. Furthermore, things that are veiled, rather prohibited or blocked, are rife with symbolism. There is something mysterious and undeniably important about them. We veil things that are cherished, and that is why we veil ourselves.
Right.
Another good part is in the Testament. Oh, this is another good one. In the Old Testament, when Moses was up on the Mount Sinai talking, when he came in after he's finished talking to God, he had to come down and he had to veil himself.
Oh, right.
Because
he was like glowing.
Exactly. He spent so much time with God that he was so beautiful that he had to veil himself. So that's another good thing, is that like we're just like so, we want to be so close with God and so holy that we want to veil ourselves, and protect others from.
Yeah.
That's
kind of funny because it gives us sort of like you can't handle my awesomeness kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
like we need a veiler. Like we're too awesome for you to handle. No.
But so it's like a sign of amazement, I guess you'd say, and it's also a sign of humility at the same time.
Wonder and humility.
Yeah, definitely humility because you're covering yourself up. But let me tell you, this is gonna sound really bad. But a lot of times I get upset at my Monthia because it covers up my good hair.
Oh, yeah.
But another time I'm like, thank goodness for veils because my hair looks awful today.
And I'm just like, I need to wear my hair down when I wear my Monthia because I'm just like, it's not going to go any other way.
All right, so here, finishing this up, it says, so another Old Testament example can be found when God tells Moses to build a sanctuary. God told Moses that the veil that he shall have placed within shall separate for you the holy place from the most holy.
Right.
Veiling is traditionally used to signify something holy and sacred, something that is supremely important. So that's kind of what we talked about earlier. And then finishing up, veiling is linked uniquely to the feminine. Like it's specifically for us to show that we are daughters of Christ.
Right.
Gertrude von Lefort writes, to unveil the woman means to destroy her mystery. Here, she is not talking about the chapel veil per se, but rather the maternal role of femininity. So we're just a giant treasure with so many secrets. It's the same reason why you would wait to have relations until marriage, because our bodies are such holy temple and so beautiful that we want to cover ourselves up, except for the holy eye, in front of God, but we want to cover ourselves up for eyes that are not worthy. We have so much secrets and so much mystery, if that makes sense, being women, that we want to contain it, unless for the right person.
Right.
The chapel veil is the outward reminder of a woman's sacred calling. It is very much the opposite of an oppressed symbol. It showcases our deep love and reverence for God, highlights beauty, and reminds us of the glorious mystery of life. because God knows that us women are the only ones that can create life and make more, produce more children in our womb.
Right.
That being said, we need to have a special symbol that tells us, that we are special as we are, and that's why we have the veils. So with how great these are, you'd wonder why the veils got taken away.
Right.
So a little bit on that. So we suggest wearing veils all the time because, it's just so special. Why wouldn't you? It's such a feminine, graceful thing of beauty. So what happened is after Vatican II, the Pope relaxed wearing the veils, and women got overexcited about that, and they just, all of them stopped wearing veils. And actually what happened is after Vatican II, a bunch of feminists got together and they burnt their veils saying, no master, no God, no rules. Like they were just so fed up or something. I don't know what it was, but they just burnt all their veils.
Yeah.
So women who don't wear their veils, and that like carried on to now. So women who don't wear their veils are accidentally or maybe purposefully supporting the feminists who burnt the veils. Because the whole reason they stopped wearing veils was because they were feminists and they didn't want to wear it anymore.
And I actually have the text here from the 1983 Code of Canon Law, currently in force, does not contain a requirement that women cover their head in church. As Cardinal Burke, the prefect of the Supreme Apostolic Signatura, stated in a private letter, the wearing of a chapel veil for women is not required when women assist at the Holy Mass according to the ordinary form of the Roman Rite. It is, however, the expectation that women who assist at the Mass according to the extraordinary form cover their heads, as was the practice at the time that the 1962 Missale Romanum was in force. It is not, however, a sin to participate in the Holy Mass according to the extraordinary form without a veil. So I see this happen a lot when the church kind of changes rules sometimes. When they're getting a lot more lax on something, they'll be like, we're still encouraging it, but it's not required anymore. And just simply saying it's not required anymore is enough for people to be like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and another thing, when you were talking about Exodus, that I just remembered right now, in the Gospel, actually, right, when they had the the Holy of Holies, or the tabernacles that only the high priest could go into back as according to Jewish custom. And when Christ died, remember where it says in the Gospel, where when Christ died, the veil was ripped apart from the tabernacle.
Yeah, that's true.
And so a lot of it can be like what would you call it? According to right here, it's a resource from Veils by Lily. The veil is a visual sermon, a public proclamation before the Lord that He is the Lord and that we love Him and that we are ready to obey Him. It's a totally countercultural statement proclaiming obedience in the midst of a culture that is totally permeated with this attitude of I will not serve.
That is so true.
And think about it, like the veil was ripped apart when Christ died in the Jewish tabernacle because those were the people who didn't listen to Christ.
Exactly.
And so that veil was ripped apart also as a revealing of the great mystery that was Christ, because, He hadn't fulfilled His mission just yet, but it was already part of it because through his death, because, we still needed to wait for Him to resurrect. But it's also a sort of like symbolism as to how the Jews didn't really obey, they didn't listen to God's word.
Yeah, and that's when the veil was ripped off.
Right, yeah. Like, well, not all the Jews, because a lot of Jews converted, but, like people in the Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
And
you can relate that to now. We take off the veils because it was a form of disobedience. Like, the feminists were just like, I'm happy to get this off, even though it was the most beautiful, graceful, like, blessing and privilege. Like, we're privileged to be women who wear our heads covered. It's saying, God, I love you so much, and I'm covering my head because I'm not worthy for you to see me, and the other people are not worthy to see me either.
Exactly. And
so it's just, and I think there's such a miscommunication when it comes to veils. People think that, oh, you're just old traditional Catholics, and it's so much more than just wearing a veil for the Eucharist. Like, it goes so much further beyond that. We're so privileged to wear it. So that's really about it. So it got taken away because of Vatican II, but we can still bring it back. Like, especially the young women out there, just think about how much God means to you. And if you're scared about what other people think of you, it ultimately, and we understand that it gets scary, like people thinking that you're holier than thou. But when you really stop to think about it, the only thing that matters is your relationship with the Lord. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. And wouldn't you rather be persecuted for the sake of righteousness? Look at our mother. She's always covered, always has her head covered, and she's the epitome of beauty. Right. And that's what God wants us to be. He wants us to imitate her, and He wants us to be our bride, His bride. So hopefully we shed some light on this subject, and hopefully this might change your mind a little bit, or maybe look more into it. There's so much research you can do on this. So this is just a little bit touching the top of it. But the Bible told us to do it. The canon tells us to do it. God told women to do it. Right. And it's such a beautiful privilege that got taken away at Vatican II.
Yeah, and especially in this day and age, which is part of the reason why we named our podcast Unveiling the Truth. Because yeah, sure, it is touching on the truth about Catholicism and in the midst of a bunch of discordiance that we see in society. But it is also sort of a reminder to ground us even when we're talking like what it is that we're doing. We're doing this for Christ. Why do we veil? We veil for Christ. Exactly. Why are we doing this podcast? We're doing it for Christ. That's the main, thing. And we're also revealing the truth, but unveiling it, right?
Unveiling the truth, yeah.
Just a little pun there. But
unveil, and the truth does get veiled a lot in today's society. Yeah. So that's what we want to unveil the truth, like just strong based, and we have facts and everything, scriptures, everything. We want this to be solid based podcast that explains to you the truth with facts.
Right. Yeah. So, that's where that comes from. You can kind of imagine that's where we're focusing on tradition and things like that. But you know what? It's like tradition doesn't have to just be like a thing for viejitas.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's so many beautiful traditions in the church. And again, like modern society has tried to do away with all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But, technically.
And they try to make traditionalism look bad too.
Right. So technically, if you're being traditional, you're going against the tide of society. Exactly. You're being rebellious in that way.
Exactly. And God is like, that's my girl.
Traditionalism has become the new rebellion.
Yeah,
so
tell me about it.
Go be a rebel.
And that's what we're all about here. We want to be traditional and explain to you the truth without personal opinions. Where if you don't like what we have to say, you can't take it up with us. This is what the church teaches. So
right.
That's just a little disclaimer.
Just a little disclaimer. Although sometimes we will be like, just our view because we are looking at things from a Catholic perspective. But yeah,
go get yourself a veil. There are so beautiful, so many beautiful veils out there.
Go to Veils by Lily. Yeah, not sponsored, although I wish. But
yeah, seriously, there's such beautiful veils out there to show everybody I'm a daughter of God, I'm a bride of Christ, and I'm willing to show it. And I have so much mystery and beauty that I'm covering up that you don't get to see.
Yep.
So thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope that we were able to shed some light on the subject for you to understand a little more. But don't just take our word for it. Go find out for yourself. Do some research and search for it yourself.
Exactly. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify, wherever else you get your audio podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at _unveiling the truth. Wait, I said that wrong.
Unveiling the truth _
We'll put it on the screen. Yeah, we're totally butchering this. Yeah. So without further ado,
have a good day. God bless you, and keep that fire burning.
Bye.